Hey everybody, Jonathan here again. Hopefully the sound is better. I'm trying something different this time. So what I want to do is talk this time about not really specifically about my Giant Revolt. I've talked about kind of the one bike to the rule of them all. What I'll do is now is talk about after you doing that for a year, how I felt, what I've learned, some of the things I've learned, some things I can do better, some things I'm going to do better and different this year. So I'm going to talk about starting from the front, going to the back about the bike, and talk about lots of different things that I've been doing, and hopefully you'll get some good ideas and thoughts out of this. So let's go and start the wheels. All right. So again, like I said in my last video a few months ago, I've kind of gone with the one bike to rule them all concept, one gravel bike that kind of does everything as a road bike, gravel bike, which for me last year has worked perfect. I got about I've got 6,000 miles on the Revolt now. I got 4,000 miles total last year, and I've had this bike for almost 2 years now. And I think it's great. I still love it. Still my favorite bike I've ever owned. Still just an amazing bike. Still comfortable. So I'm going to talk about some of the things I've done. The tires right now, I've gone a little different. I have the American Classic Kimberlites on. I've got about 80 miles on those. Previously, of course, I also have that is the carbon wheel set that came with it. And of course, I also bought another wheel set, which is this, which is a used DT Swiss. These are actually um, cross wheels, but DT Swiss 1800s. And I've got the Gravel Kings. I've got 43s on here, the Gravel Kings. And then on the right now, I have the 40 American Classic Kimberlites, which are gravel tires. Most of last year, though, actually, I used pure road tires. The Swalby Pro 1s, which were great tires. I've got about almost 2,000 miles on this one. I actually wore out the other one. I think I probably wore it out on a trainer doing a bike fit, a resistance trainer. Kind of the tire was a little flat, so I replaced it. And I replaced it with an American Classic Timekeeper, which is kind of the American Classic version of the kind of Continental Schwalbe Pro 1, things like that. All right, talking about weight again. So these American Classic Kimberlites weigh about 1487, and that's the rear wheel taken off on the CXRs. By comparison, the Timekeeper, the more road tire, weighed about 1272 on that same wheel. So definitely quite a bit of weight increase, but of course it's a gravel kind of a combo tire versus a pure road tire. And of course, the Gravel Kings on the DT Swiss aluminum wheels weighed 1536 when I weighed them. So you guys definitely got a definite increase in weight. But the road tires definitely feel like a road bike and a road tire. It's a little smaller. These are 30s. The Schwalbe Pro 1s I had were 32, so it'll make this in a 32. But this was a really good tire. I enjoyed it. It feels good for a road tire. But obviously, these have much better, more of a relaxed feel. It's more of a larger, higher volume tire. So it's going to have more of a road feel to it, which I quite enjoy. Also, I'll talk at the end of the video, but I actually had an injury last year, so I'm going to try these tires out. I think the tire might have been a contributing factor, so that's a tease for later on. I'll show you the video and pictures about that. I've got about almost 100 miles on these so far. These Kimberlites are really good tires. I like them so far. I wanted something, last year was more about road. I pretty much did mostly just road and not so much gravel, but this year I want to do more of a combination. These are definitely faster rolling than the Gravel Kings and some other tire options. They're definitely not fast rolling by any means, but they've been pretty good so far. So brakes have been an issue to try to find over the last year or so, of course. On the front, I have the standard Shimano LO3As, and those have been just fine, the Fend version. On the back, since I couldn't find enough, I actually have the Cool Stop disc brake, and that's worked just fine for me. I'm a heavier rider, 200 some pounds plus the bike and equipment and everything else. Probably, a bike as a whole with me is probably 230, 240, depending on how much food, water, everything else I have, and how much clothing I have on at the time. But they've been braking for me just fine. I have some Swiss stops I've not tried yet, so I'm going to try those here in the next little bit, but I'm excited about those. All right, now I'm going to move on to the handlebars and shifters. One thing I did, I got a bike fit last year, and I was using the standard 46 mil wide that came with this Giant Revolt. The large and extra large, I believe, come with the 46. Little smaller sizes, little narrow bars. On the bike fit, I was Mares at 44, so a little bit different. So I actually ended up going 42s because I got the Shimano. These are the Pro gravel bar with about a 20-degree flare, which is kind of hard to see there, but you can kind of see a little bit of a nice flare. I like that because when I go down the drops, it goes a little wider for more control and also more comfort. I don't feel like I'm always kind of hitting the top bar when I'm going down to try to get down the drops. And with the bike fit, I can use the drops a lot more. I also kind of tilted in the shifters just a little bit more. You can kind of see that a little bit more. I find that's more comfortable for me. Also gives me more grip options. One thing I did too, that's a little different. I kind of more like I call shroud my shifters, whereas this one just goes down the cassette to a higher gear. This one goes up the cassette to a lower gear. So instead of doing the rear shift all on the left-hand shifter, I went ahead and moved it one to the other because I went the full synchro shift. So all I do is control the rear. So I don't worry about controlling the front. It does that automatically. So when I get up to about sixth from the top, it automatically switches in the front and kind of vice versa. Uh, I like that. It works out really well for me. So my outside buttons, larger buttons, now control my Garmin unit. So that way I can just go ahead and reach down while I'm shifting, not have to move my hand any. Just go ahead and change my Garmin position, my Garmin screen I have, and also the shifter buttons, since it's DI2, do the same thing. So basically, this button on the inside and this larger one on the outside do the same thing for me, which works out really well for me. I like that. I started doing that last year with gloves because it was easier for me with gloves to find the larger buttons, what would normally be the large downshift, kind of make it my only shift button, and that's worked out really well. I like it. I like the feel of the DI2 handlebars. I went with the I forget. I'll drop in what brand of handlebar tape this is on the video, but I can't remember right now off the top of my head. Works out really well. Also, you can see the Appadura bag. I only use this bag in the wintertime. I use this to carry, like, I'll wear a heavier jacket or a lighter jacket. I'll take the other one in this. That way, if I leave in the morning, it's a little cooler, it warms up. I can either throw my jacket in here or go to the lighter jacket, which I keep in here, or vice versa, depending on when I'm riding. I also keep my heavier gloves in here, or I'll wear the heavier gloves and take the lighter ones in here. I also take extra food, things like that. It's just good to have a little extra space on the front of the bike. I also still use, of course, my frame bag. Still loving the Appadura frame bag. It's very useful. This is what I keep kind of all my tools, my kits, my extra tire, some food, keys, wallet, stuff like that. And it's worked out really well. It's right in here. It's very durable. Again, I've not ridden in heavy rain, but it seems very, very water resistant. I really enjoyed it so far. One last thing I have discovered that I meant to mention earlier is these buttons on apparently on the road groups, the Ultegra and Durace, the buttons are on the top, which I actually kind of would like because what I found is in this, I know the idea is you don't have to take your thumb off to go up here, but I found that motion, especially on longer rides, because I tend to shift my screen a lot for different areas, maps, power, speed, heart rate, things like that. I shift a lot, and it can be uncomfortable after a while, which is another reason that I did this for my Garmin instead of just relying on the inside buttons. So that's more of a personal preference. I find this a little annoying, especially my left hand for some reason. It's caused a little bit of pain, but that's one reason I went with this, like I said. So I love it. Another thing I forgot to point out is I actually keep pepper gel right here. I have never had a bad run-in with a dog yet. I've been very lucky on that. But I was actually out for a ride and someone else was having an interaction with the dog. I think they kind of upset the dog beforehand because the dog was not aggressive to me, but was very aggressive to them. So it made me think, oh crap, what am I going to do if I'm out and get attacked by a dog? So I put pepper gel right here. I can just pull it off fairly easily. It's just kind of Velcroed on. I can get it off in probably a minute or so. And that way I'm ready to go in case I have to interact with the dog. I don't want to hurt a dog. I'm a big animal lover, but I figure this is a lot less impactful on the dog or someone else, depending on what you see with the ride. But it kind of gives me something right there. And once I get it on, it stays on very well. It doesn't come off. It doesn't rattle around. One other thing I've learned that's very important this year is a good torque wrench. Here are the two that I have. I actually purchased this one first. Not a bad unit. It's kind of hard. Let me see if I can just get in here where you can see it. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see where it's basically you put the piece in and you turn it, and then you can see where the resistance is, what the torque rating is. So basically, I put the drive in that way and turn it. You can kind of see where this little number goes in relation to the 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got to kind of see where it is. I used that for a little while, but then once I upgrade my bike, I also upgrade my torque wrench. I went with the Giant. This way, once it reaches its torque setting, it automatically kind of gives you an audible click and move, so you can very easily tell that you're at the 4, 5, 6, 8, 12, whatever you're going up to. The only bad part about this one is kind of hard to see. Some of the numbers are a little hard to read because you basically take this and spin it around, pull this down. It's kind of hard to do with one hand while I'm holding the camera. And you use this setting. So you see there's a line there. You have the line, and once it reaches there, and of course on this bezel or the 0, it's kind of hard to see, but the 0 through 0.9, so you can really fine tune it. I like this one a lot better. I feel more comfortable using this one. I think it's a better unit. I think it gives me more standardized um, use of the torque wrench. And I have very specifically, I go around every couple of months or so and check all the bolts on my bike, make sure that everything is tight, everything is good, especially the seat post. So some of the things I always check are, of course, your seat post tension with the torque wrench, the stem bolts, make sure they're good and make sure they're the proper torque settings. I check the brake settings. I double check and make sure all on my chain ring are good. All the bolts are okay on it, tight. Again, brakes, check my through axles. I check my seat clamp up here to make sure that it is the proper torque. And then, of course, my stem on this end going on the steer tube coming up. And then there's other miscellaneous bolts throughout it. But that way I make sure that there's less chance of anything coming loose through vibration riding. On to the frame now. I talked about the frame bag. Also, one thing I did too, and you can kind of see it in certain spots here, and you can really kind of see it, yeah, right through there. That is Laminex. I use that to protect the frame. And of course, right here as well. Kind of in high use areas like the seat tube, the top tube, the down tube front, the very front of the bike. Areas like that where I might get paint chips, things like that. Um, I like it. I think it's definitely protected the bike. It's given me a little more protection, a little more peace of mind. It's worked out really well, and it's fairly inexpensive. I did a video on installing it as well. I also did a video on my Apidura bag talking about the weight. I can't remember the weight of this off the top of my head, but it's not much, even with all the stuff in it. I'd much rather do that than have to worry about carrying it on me or whatever else. Oh, and one thing too, this I pretty much only use in the winter. Just for extra clothing. I take that off in the summer, and that's put all my extra food in here or on me. That way, I'm not carrying quite so much. If I was doing a really, really long ride, I might still use it. But for most everything I use, I just go ahead and use the frame bag. The rear rack. I was using the rear rack, and it works very well, but I really like the frame bag better. The rear rack for me, just put a little more weight back here, where it's a little odd feeling. I enjoy the weight. I think it's more balanced here in the middle than on the rear for me personally. Frame down to the pedals. I did last a little over a year ago, December 21. I moved up to the Garmin Rally pedals, power meter pedals. I really like them. They are a little more expensive. I lifted the left side one only. But with the Praxis, there are limited options. I thought about changing the crankset, but I really like the Praxis. It's been really good. It's lightweight, it's strong. Not really had any issues on it so far. But the Garmin power meter pedals, they of course sync very well with my Garmin unit. They give me, from everything I've read, they're accurate. To me, they seem accurate. I am not a super strong cyclist, but I'm a data geek. So all the power data is fascinating to me. I did get the X200, so dual-sided power meter, so I can get left-right balance, standing up out of the saddle, pedaling efficiency, kind of all that data. And of course, I see it in real time while I'm riding. And they've been good pedals. They're just standard Shimano SPD pedals. They sync really well. The only problem I've had with them, they work really well. I like them. I think they're definitely a recommendation. And I did a lot of research before I bought them, and everybody seems to agree they're a good pedal, which I agree. I think they are. But if you stop for too long and you try to recalibrate, that can be a bit of an issue, and it doesn't recalibrate as quickly as I would wish. Seems like that initial calibration goes pretty well, but then once you stop, like you stop for a 5-10 minute break, then you just got to go back. Then seems to me it takes a little bit longer in my experience to sync and calibrate to calibrate. It syncs up just fine as far as connecting, but the calibration seems a little longer than I think it should, really. But overall, very happy with them. Again, I'm a data geek, so I love that. One thing I have learned to help with the initial calibration and connection is if you spin both, this kind of wakes them up. And let me see, yeah, you can't really see it right there. But basically, once you do that, and also I kind of spin both the pedals. This also kind of helps wake them up, I've found. Kind of spin them both, spin them around here again, kind of waking up, and that helps them connect to the Jeep, to the Garmin.
All right, like I said, last year, unfortunately, I did have an accident resulting in a fairly significant injury. This is the video. I'm going to play it again here in just a second. But ultimately, I was riding along, and for some reason, my rear tire kind of went to the right. Not sure exactly why. I think I probably hit something in the mud. As you can see there, when I was riding along, there was some mud on the trail there. I think I probably hit something, went to the right, couldn't grab traction, I just kept on going. That resulted in a pelvic fracture, which I do not recommend at all. Pretty bad. But luckily it was stable, as you can see in the image here. It was very stable, so I was very lucky in the fact that I didn't have to have surgery or anything like that. I was very lucky there, but it did make me rethink my wheel choice. That's why I said earlier in the video I went from more of a road tire, standard road tire, to more of a all-around gravel, kind of smooth rolling gravel tire. So I'm going to try that this year. It also gives me a little more versatility as far as going off-road, onto light gravel and road. And so far the tires worked really well. It's very comfortable. Not as fast as road tires, of course, but it's not nearly as slow as the Gravel King SKs I've also used and some of the other gravel tires I've used. So, all right, thank you all very much. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will talk to you later. Bye.